Hi, and welcome to this episode of Rare Book Chat.
Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, Michael.
What's going on?
Did you know somebody sold a handkerchief for, let me get the number here, $826,000?
That is some fine hanky.
Yeah, a hanky.
Hanky.
$826,000.
No, when it's $826,000, you have to say handkerchief.
Yeah.
It's not a
Can you
hanky.
believe that?
Yeah, it's better than a tissue.
Why would you buy a handkerchief for $800,000?
Well, if that handkerchief was in the possession of one Abraham Lincoln on the night he was shot, well...
We had talked about the Lincoln sale at Leslie Hinman that happened a couple of weeks ago, and so I just thought it was kind of fun to recap briefly that they sold a handkerchief. The estimate, I think, was $100,000 to $200,000, and they sold it for $826,000. What do you think of that?
Let me tell you, it does not look like much.
It doesn't. What do you do with it? That was my first thought. Anyway.
We have a special guest today. We have Hélène Golay of Capitol Hill Books, and we asked Hélène to join us because we are big fans of Capitol Hill catalogs. We're always finding something interesting in the Capitol Hill catalogs.
That's the idea, yeah.
That's the idea. All right, so Hélène, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Hélène Golay. I am the rare book specialist at Capitol Hill Books, where I'm also one of the partners. I've been there, I guess, full-time since 2023, but I've been a bookseller since about 2012.
Where is Capitol Books?
It's in Washington, D.C. It's we have a brick and mortar shop just across the street from Eastern Market, so right on the hill.
So you sent out an e-list recently, and there was this one item that was so fascinating, and the description so interesting and amusing that we wanted to ask you about it.
Sure.
Wait, before we get into that, can I say something in general about your descriptions? And I'm saying you, but you have a staff too.
Mm-hmm.
But what I like about them, rare book descriptions can be so, I don't know, dull. I'm not allowed. Should I not say that about our business?
No.
They can
I
be.
agree.
They can be. All right. Yeah. So, but your descriptions are more chatty. So I feel like someone's in the room telling me about what I'm looking at. Getting that out of the way.
So this thing that I saw, and I was kind of fascinated by, it's this archive of dinner records in your e-list. Tell us about this. What is this?
So it is essentially the Cold War era ambassador to NATO, his wife's diaries of every meal that she hosted, sort of on and off from 1949 to 1975. And it looks like we're missing a couple of volumes, but it is a pretty massive record of hundreds of dinners. They were giving dinners, cocktail parties, luncheons, pretty much once or twice a week for all those years. So hundreds of people have passed through their doors, and it is fascinating to see what they were eating and wearing.
And wearing, right. And where they were sitting. Like, the details are incredible.
Well, what she's wearing specifically, but yeah.
Well, I like how you frame the whole thing as it's not just a, record of dinners, yes, but an exceptional record of American Cold War diplomacy. And as I was reading, I was like, yeah, I'm learning a lot about the period through dinners. Jeremy, you were commenting to me about some of the attendees.
Oh, my God, it's fascinating. Go straight to Salvador Dali because tell us about that. That was so much fun.
He's, I think, probably the name that sticks out the most is he and his wife Gala show up in this record at least 8 times. And I love that Dali is a known gourmand who has written books on his love of food, and they are feeding him black bean soup and tomato soup and pigs in a blanket and just kid stuff that you think, is this really... Well, this is what was on the menu, though. It's just hilarious.
Yeah, because the Dali cookbook is famously crazy. I mean, he's got animals that I don't know where you find in recipes.
And no, crack open the Campbell's soup; it's all fine.
Yeah. But he came back repeatedly. You said so. It worked.
Yeah, clearly. I think it must have been very good company or something. But yeah,
she wore a green and flame dress in honor of the Dali. See, you got to go with style.
That dress doesn't show up in any other meal, so it must have been it was a special occasion.
Now, you say this one is pretty fascinating, and it's maybe a little uncomfortable to read, where Horace Sewell, the British general whose grandparents were a white Jamaican planter and his black slave, Kelly Hughes, questionably, good use of that word, wore a black and white taffeta dress.
Yeah, which again, never wore it again after that dinner. So it seems to me not by accident that she wore that dress. Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, was she maybe serving Dali pigs in a blanket, not by accident? A sly.
I don't think anything was by accident here.
No, and that's also the Horsul dinner was one of the few where they don't serve alcohol, which I thought was also like, I wonder why that was.
I just chuckled when I saw this one. South African conservationist and fraudster, Lawrence van der Post.
I think he wasn't a known fraudster at the time, but yeah, it came out later on that
you don't expect a conservationist to be a fraudster. So how did you come by this?
This was a score at the Armory show this year.
Did you develop any sense of who she was as a person? Did you get any feel for like?
No, it's really just a very. There are no like personal tidbits, but I did notice that he passed away in 71. So I get to see the last meal that they had before he died, and then there's a 6 month break where she didn't host, and then when she did start hosting again, she wore red.
It's I see a little thesis coming out of here.
Yeah, I agree. It's from one meal to the other, you don't really get a good snapshot, but over 25 years, you get to see how the guests go from just being almost exclusively French to sort of slowly moving east. It's you have the king and queen of Romania, or the dignitaries from Yugoslavia and Czechoslovakia, and just sort of like as they expand their reach.
So it's like soft power in action.
Yeah, that's.
I have a question. Why did you underprice this?
I underpriced everything.
This is just too cheap. $3,500 is not right.
Yeah, well,
because it is a manuscript. It's a manuscript.
Yeah, 3 manuscripts.
Super cool. 3 manuscripts. There you go.
Yeah,
3 manuscripts for what? What was the price again?
$3,500.
$3,500.
You obviously went through this carefully and thoroughly. If you could pick a dinner to have attended,
I certainly would. I would want to be at a dinner with Dali and Golay. I think that's the obvious safe answer. But I also would like to. I want to see her. She has a dress that she refers to as a gold Cleopatra. I want to just see what that looked like, because I imagine there's sort of like a gold lame toga or something, and I just want to see it.
Yeah.
Did that come up multiple times? That dress?
Yes, yeah, she wore it a lot late in life. Yeah, so she'd bounce back between that and her pink Chanel. So this is really important stuff. Yeah,
I know. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So who's the buyer for this? Who's going to buy this? Is it a collector, private?
I imagined, I was thinking an institution, probably somewhere that has strong holdings in international relations or espionage, but yeah, TBD.
Espionage. May well have been espionage going on at these, gatherings.
Right. So yeah, he was an OSS operative during World War II, and you do see like General William Donovan, who was the head of the OSS, is one of the guests on the list frequently. Plus, Alan Dulles was the director of the CIA. So there's got to have been like some notes being passed around under the table, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah.
Back to the Armory show for a second. When you came across this, how was it described? I mean, was it?
Fortunately, it was fairly perfunctory description. They do mention Dali and Dulles, but I felt like I was like, I can work with this.
Very cool.
Yeah, we're always looking for that. We're looking for a value that we can add.
Yeah.
A story to tell.
Yeah.
What else is in the pipeline? What's next from?
I am currently working on our next E-list, which is now E-list 50 items, $500 and under, speaking of underpricing stuff, but yeah.
Anything in there that is especially interesting that you can share with us now?
I have a small cache of manuscripts from schoolgirls from the first half of the 20th century, all to do with interior design.
Oh, cool.
Which I think it's very fascinating to see that people used to teach 10-year-olds how to decorate their future homes for their children. So
that is unexpected.
Yeah. And they're like very visual, and they're charming. So I don't. Yeah.
From what period?
I have 3 of them. They go from the 1910s to the 1960s.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Geez, I can't wait to read about it.
Yeah.
Look for that.
Right.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This is fun. And yeah, Capitol Hill Books.
Yeah.
Get on their list.
Yeah, somebody go buy that manuscript.
All right. Yes.
Before you, excellent.
All right. Really appreciate it.
Take care.
All right,
Thanks,
see ya.
Hélène. Bye-bye.
What do you have for me?
Well, I woke up at 4:00 this morning, and that was because of the cat. The cat, I had failed to put out enough food the night before, last night.
Is this going to be a good story?
No. And so at 4 a.m., the little guy's prowling around making a racket. So I get up, feed
Making a ruckus.
Yeah. And I think we overfeed him, but whatever. He's a cat. So anyway, I'm up at 4 now, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going right back to sleep, and I'll be lucky to go back to sleep. So anyway, I started looking around on my phone.
But you obeyed the cat?
I got up and fed him, because otherwise he's going to go on and on and on for hours howling.
Is he becoming a fat cat?
Oh, he is already a fat cat.
You have to rethink your cat priorities.
I got so many things to think about. The last thing I want to worry about is his, BMI. But he can still, leap, and he bounds around the house and all that stuff. So he's doing okay. And he's happy. You should see him sleep. Oh,
all right. This is great. Okay.
Purring.
I love cats, but
people like cats. A lot of people do. Some people don't.
Yeah. My cat eats my elbow at 4:00 if he's hungry.
And so, I'm now it's 4 a.m. and I'm up at least for a little while, and I get on my phone, and what do you know? I'm on Instagram and looking at books, and I see this book I've never seen before, and I immediately messaged the seller. I said, I want to buy this.
Okay.
Yeah,
it must be some book.
It's some book. I love it.
Or you're in an early morning delirium.
I think I was in an early morning delirium, but it wasn't super expensive. All right, so the book is called Computer Lib, and it's written by this guy, Ted Nelson. It's a first edition, first printing.
Is that a political book? Like, the libs?
It is sort of. First printing of this important artifact of computing history. And I'm really interested in computing history. Can I tell you why?
I know you are.
I am.
Wait, what year did you say?
1974.
That's a fertile time for computer history.
That certainly is. That's just right about when...
All right, send me some information on this. Send me a link.
Here you go.
Oh, it's cool looking too.
It is, right? And 1974 is just when Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak at this point, I think they're still at Atari. And they're working on video games with Al Alcorn. So the PC revolution is about to happen.
Wait, you've got to describe this. It looks like a pamphlet. This on the top, it says, you can and must understand computers now, in all caps.
Yeah.
1974. A lot of people aren't thinking about computers.
When I saw the images of this book and the aesthetic of it, that's what flipped me out, because it's got a zine aesthetic where it's...
Is it privately printed?
It's privately printed by Ted Nelson. Apparently, he went $2,000 out of pocket himself to print up a small run of this first edition. Right?
Yeah, it totally looks homemade.
It does, right? Ted Nelson is a philosopher and a social theorist. And so this is like the humanities take on tech. We should say the bookseller, Kevin Sell, his company's called The Rare Book Sleuth.
I like his stuff.
I know, he's got great stuff. And I like his photographs. He's got good stuff on Insta. Like, he makes books look good.
Is that the cool way to say it?
That's how you say Insta. Or you can say, what do you say? Instagram?
I say Instagram.
Yeah. I don't know. I just try to be cool.
You try to sound younger.
I certainly am. He describes it as Ted Nelson's self-published spiritual manifesto.
Ooh, spiritual manifesto.
Yeah. Inspired a generation of DIY computer lovers and is considered the first book on the personal computer.
Wait a minute. You know what's cool? I just noticed in these pictures. Hold on. It's 2 books in one.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at this correctly, you flip it around, right?
Yeah.
And on the back, but upside down, it's like a dos-a-do binding.
That's what I was going to say, dos-a-do.
So, you're looking back to old school bookmaking.
Yeah.
It says dream machines.
Yeah.
There's a quote on the back. It says new freedoms through computer screens. That's an interesting relevance right now. Are we more free through computer screens, or are we entrapped?
Okay, that's a good question. But the point is, what's fascinating to me is that this book is thinking of computers not as machines computational machines, but as something that could, generate a whole new, you don't write a spiritual manifesto about, software. You write a spiritual manifesto about something that is a momentous change that is dawning. And I think that's why I'm so excited about this book. And I haven't received it yet. I can't wait to get it. I can't wait to go through it.
And Ted Nelson invented hypertext, the word and the idea. I think the idea. But anyway, this book, your lovely purchase, is written, I'm looking at pages now, it's in a chaotic manner.
Yeah.
Because he's trying to mimic in the book his idea of links and dendritic thought and nonlinearity.
Right.
And it's wild looking. I want to get my hands on this too. It's absolutely wild looking. It's like diagrams, arrows.
The aesthetic of it is fantastic, isn't it? Right? I mean, this is what you want a book to look. It's so unexpected.
I know, we go to a website and you read, sometimes you read 4 words, you click on a link, you go somewhere else. Your mind is scattered in a million places.
Yeah.
But that must have been, you're right, 1974, that's a crazy thought.
That Nelson introduced a few words in this book.
Ooh. Okay, I'm ready.
So you mentioned hypertext. How about this word? Intertwingularity.
Ooh, I like that. Sounds like a Roald Dahl word. Like the intertwinglers.
Nelson says everything is deeply intertwingled.
Oh, I'm using that from now on.
How is that not? That's a great word.
It's a great word. It's a word when you hear it, you know what it means already.
Well, the other thing is, it's the kind of word when you hear it, you're already anticipating, when can I use that word?
Oh, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. So now you're going to find yourself, steering conversations in a direction where you can use the word intertwingled.
And then you say it like everybody should know what you mean. And they would.
Cyber crud, another word. The author's own term for the practice of putting things over on people using computers, especially forcing them to adapt to a rigid, inflexible system. Cyber crud. How many times are you on a website and you're forced down this path where you have to now give up data, you have to answer these.
Oh, that's a good example. You're right.
And so now the machine is entrapping the individual.
Oh,
cyber crud.
That's not liberation.
No, that's not liberation.
Well, since this is a two-way book, it's written, it's half, then you flip it around, you have another book from the other side. The first part, the computer lib part, his rant against the current state of the computer industry. And the second part, the dream machines, is his hopeful part. But hold on. We're talking about this pamphlet, homemade-ish.
Yeah.
Is this just a voice in the wilderness? I mean, how many people paid their $7 for this?
I don't know, but he was very influential. Wozniak was inspired by Nelson. Nelson himself was inspired, it seems, by Stuart Brand's Whole Earth catalog.
Wait, so you're saying people did read this and think about it?
Yeah. Wozniak said, Ted Nelson is like a god to me. This is at a speech in April 2014 at the Intertwingled Festival. So they have a festival.
Oh, I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
So Wozniak, at the Intertwingled Festival, he had an important part of my whole life and background going back to the Homebrew Computer Club, where the ideas of computers for people were really becoming important and getting into me. And he says, the way it worked back then was we had a few great leaders of our club, and they usually came from a humanistic point of view. They weren't just technologists.
Right.
And that is what got me. The aesthetic of this publication and the spirit of it. I love the idea that people in the early 70s were thinking about computers, not as, computing machines, not for technical, discrete tasks, but that these machines could usher in a new way of life. And I'm not saying that.
Well, you're right, because Ted Nelson was a philosopher and sociologist. That's his training.
Yeah.
So maybe you need that outsider's perspective. I'm thinking there's hope for us. We need to go to some subject I know nothing about, and be like, say something profound, and be like, "Oh, that's the outsider's perspective." Yeah. Does it work that easily?
I think it does.
There are a lot of subjects I know nothing about. This is exciting.
You got a great future ahead of yourself right here.
I've got a whole menu.
I love the idea that this is a moment when we can look back and find a publication of a visionary thinker imagining in holistic and in big picture terms how the PC might impact the individual, society, culture, et cetera, et cetera.
Let's go back to the homemadeness of this, because I can't kind of let that go. And as a book person, I don't know, something feeling.
There is nothing better than a homemade book.
Like homemade food, homemade brownies.
Well, I didn't see that coming, but
I'm thinking of how a lot of these important papers that we later realized were so influential were produced in such primitive, I don't know, ways.
Right.
Like Bill Gates' open letter to hobbyists.
Yeah.
Computer notes, incredibly important.
Right.
So these are what these people were reading. They're passing it around. These people.
Yeah.
I mean, these tech-minded people in the avant-garde of the computer world. So the homebrew computer club, it's this feel of, as you were saying, non-industrial. It's a ground up kind of creation.
Yeah. It's so cool.
You know what I find fascinating too? So this is 1974. A lot of people, most people, the world essentially is going on with their life. They have no idea that this is simmering underneath.
Right.
You know, like this is like this volcanic energy is coming through and going to make this explosion with the world as we know it.
Right.
It's easy in retrospect to see how one thing leads to another, but when you're living through it, you don't see it. I didn't see any of it.
Yeah. Here's the Gibson quote. Everybody knows it, but the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. Great quote.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I feel bad because I like was there and I still didn't get any of it.
Yeah.
So it really takes, I don't know, it does take a special vision. So when you're looking back, and you have to remind yourself that, again, I'm reminding myself, it's 1974.
Yeah.
It's way, I think he is ahead of his time.
He is ahead of his time. It's also, and this is something that in thinking about the role of computer-related artifacts in our business, mostly you get artifacts like a computer or...
Can we call them relics?
Relics, yeah, but they're artifacts. These are really artifacts. And, there was the sale at Christie's last September of Paul Allen's computer collection. And some of those things sold for like 50 times the high estimate.
I know.
The big computer in the 1980s, it was the supercomputer, it was called a Cray. And that sold at the Allen sale for like $1 million. And I think the estimate was, a tenth of that. And, when you
clearly not for the functionality.
Right. When you think about like what's, and this is obviously a small sliver of the market, the collectibles market, and it does overlap, I think, with the book market. But if you think about like what's all the excitement about, for me, it's that this is a Gutenberg-like revolution, and which brings me to Steve Jobs, because when you think about Nelson, right, as having this vision, and in 1974, Jobs is at the time he's working at Atari. It's one thing to have the vision; it's another thing to make it happen, to implement it.
Oh, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting where if you think of Jobs, Wozniak, and Nelson,
but did Nelson make it happen?
No, that's what I'm saying. Nelson had the the big picture, the vision, and I'm not saying that this unfolded in a linear way, but it's like
he would appreciate that, right?
Yeah, that's
his
right.
Nonlinearity,
right? But Nelson is like the kind of philosopher figure in the early 70s of what the computer revolution can be, right? Wozniak absorbs it and is a true believer, but he's got the technical skills. And there's Steve Jobs, and he shares the vision with Nelson. And so Jobs has the vision, but he also has the drive to make it happen, to like push Wozniak, which he did, to, create this company. And then
what's interesting about that story?
Tell me.
As opposed to Gutenberg, where you're like, we're all saying one person's name and that just solves everything.
Right.
This fact that so many people were involved, which is very much in the spirit of the internet and open sourceness.
Right.
So, the story of its creation mirrors what they hoped it would be.
Right.
Is that beautiful?
It is beautiful. Now, the thing is, so when I bought this, I was like, would I sell that? What would I price that at? And then I started going down this rabbit hole of pricing things that are really, exciting. And to you?
Well, do you want to sell it?
I don't think I do. Maybe.
So this is irrelevant.
I know, but like, okay, so then I started thinking, like, how much is this worth? And I'm thinking it's worth a lot more than $250, at least in the future, right? Like back to the Gibson quote, the future's already here, right?
The future's already here.
You know what it made me think of is something
it's not priced as a future item.
Right. It made me think of something we've talked about, which is the Turing mind paper.
Oh,
right.
I'm saying because that paper's been driving me crazy over the years.
Yeah. So tell us what it is, Michael. Tell us, what is the Turing mind paper?
Well, the Turing paper is from 1950. Alan Turing published in this journal Mind, which, appropriate to this conversation, was a quarterly review of psychology and philosophy.
Yeah.
This is a good analogy.
Well,
Jeremy.
Mind is one of the leading philosophical journals in the world for a very long time.
Absolutely. So he publishes this paper called Computing Machinery and Intelligence, and has the magical first line, I propose to consider the question, Can Machines Think?
Ooh, how timely.
The heading for this section is called The Imitation Game. So, you know where they got the title of the movie from. Good movie, too. But anyway, the Turing paper, I used to be able to get several times a year. People always wanted it. And I used to think,
you buy it for $2,000.
Exactly.
In wrappers.
$2,000.
You sell it for $4,000 or $3,000.
And then all of a sudden, I noticed, I'm going to have to pay $3,000 for it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I have to pay $3,500 for it.
Yeah.
And it keeps creeping up and up, and I was refusing to believe it. So I wasn't buying copies because I'm like, it's gone up too fast.
Yeah.
And now, 2 weeks ago, one went up at Swan, a ghastly copy. I went down to preview it, and the top cover was off. I was like, I wouldn't buy this at any price. Really. So I was thinking, I really want one right now. And it went for $10,000, and it was a copy I just arrogantly turned my nose at.
Yeah, you wouldn't touch it.
So I don't know what to do. I have a little secret, though.
Tell me.
Just emailed a bunch of people I sold them to and said, I'll sell your mind paper.
Prime out.
So far, nobody does. So actually, that's the point, because I'm offering them significantly more than they paid, but they're like, no.
Yeah.
So I could offer you more than what you paid for the computer lib, and you would say no.
I would say no.
So
I mean, up to a point.
What's the point here?
Well, what is the point?
Well, somewhat. I guess we're appreciating the philosophy and thought, inspirational papers behind Computer Revolution, right?
But I was thinking more in market terms, where sometimes like you're the underbidder at a higher price. So like, just to let's say a fine copy of the Mind paper came up and it's $25,000.
I'm a prisoner of my past.
Yeah,
I can't even compute that. Ha-ha.
Right. Yeah. Get it. But like you could buy that at $25,000, and then you'd say, okay, there's no way I'm selling this for a penny less than 50 ever, because you think I would buy it up to 30,000. I'd buy it up to 35,000. I'd buy it up to 40,000. And so like then you're
bidding against yourself.
You're having this internal conversation where you're like, at what point would I not buy it? And then that's the price that you would price it at.
Right.
And I mean, okay, so here's another question for you.
Wait. I'm still processing that. We have talked about that in different ways. So I buy something for $1,000.
Yeah.
And you come along and offer me $2,000. I would say, if I'm a pure business person, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But I might say, no, I would buy it at $2,000.
Right.
So say I did sell it to you for $2,000, then I immediately offer you $2,000 for it back. That would be what I'm saying. So therefore, I shouldn't sell it to you for $2,000.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So when you're pricing, you do think that. You're like, no, I want it at that price.
But it doesn't work for like a very, very good near fine copy of Old Man and the Sea.
Oh, good point. Of
Right?
course. If you can go compare to other copies online, then you're bound, and you can't play this at all.
You can't play this game. But if it's one of one, or if it's something that's really rare, and then you can start to have the conversation with yourself of like, I would definitely overprice this relative to the present market, but my vision of the future market for this is very different. So I'm going to price it for the future market, and in the meantime, I get to have it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a conflict of interest now between bookseller and book collector.
That's exactly right. Booksellers are collectors, and they don't know it half the time, right? And then collectors are booksellers half the time, and they don't know it, and they don't want to admit
nice
it.
Spin. Yeah.
And there's this intertwingularity going on.
Oh, genius.
I finally got. I mean, that was awesome.
I didn't see it coming either.
I didn't either. I didn't. It just popped out. These things happen.
The Mind paper is trickier than what you're saying, because it's not one of one. I just don't know why they've disappeared from the market, though. They have disappeared. So they're out there.
The collectors who scooped them up, not so long ago, 2,000, 4,000.
I had one collector who bought multiple copies from me.
Yeah. I mean, I know people who've done that for the Turing on computable numbers paper.
That's same guy, actually.
Yeah.
You know what that guy is? He's a smart man.
Yeah, there's also that Claude Shannon paper on information theory. All this stuff is really exciting, but niche in the book market. I mean, most people are thinking about Charles Dickens, not Claude Shannon.
I wonder if it has matured, though, now. Like, the people who are ahead of the game, you can't be ahead of the game anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. The future will tell us.
When will we see?
In the future.
See you there.
All right.